So you're new to the hobby, you just started this aquascaping thing. You want to know how to make a more impactful layout. In this video, I will tell you a lot of tips and tricks about how to actually make your aquarium look better. Welcome to the beautiful world of aquascaping. When you start building your aquarium, don't just jump into selecting hardscape, putting it together, but start with a concept. That concept can come from 4 inspirational sources. The first one is a photo that you've seen somewhere, a movie, scene, a set, whatever. The second inspiration source can be one of your hikes, something that you saw in Mother Nature, something that you want to get inspired from. The third inspiration can be another aquascape. Don't worry about copying aquascapes, because if you do, you're not going to be able to copy it one-on-one. And the fourth one would be just a vibe, a feeling that you have. So this is how the idea will get closer to what you want to do. Every picture tells a story, so you actually have to have a story behind your aquarium. This is, I think, the #1 issue that I've seen with many aquarium enthusiasts who are just building aquariums. I think that is the most important basis of the aquascaping layout mastering. The second point is choosing the right hardscape. What kind of hardscape should I choose? Well, first of all, it has to look natural. You don't want to have a garden gnome in your aquarium, unless you're like my wife. She loves those things. The second point in that is that it should have some kind of structure. You don't want flat, boring elements in your aquarium. Find the structure that you want to have and apply that structure to your idea. So always look at your idea, point #1 that we discussed before, to be able to build that. And you're not going to achieve that look by selecting just a couple of elements. Selecting a big wood piece and putting it in the middle of your aquarium most of the times is not enough. So you have to select a couple of wood pieces and construct them, put them together in a way that tells the story. The third point is that you need to find the proper size for your aquarium. Many beginners commit the mistake of selecting hardscape that is too small for their aquariums. So you have an aquarium that is about like 36 centimeters high, and then you select a rock which is this big. So it's going to basically sit at the bottom of the aquarium. Even though you have some soil below it, it's going to sit probably 3-4 centimeters higher than the bottom plate of the aquarium, and then you're going to have 20 centimeters of nothingness on top. And you want to compensate that by choosing big plants. The whole layout structure is already out of balance because of that. So the size of the hardscape you select matters a lot. On the other hand, if the wood piece or rocks or whatever are too big for the size of your aquarium, you're going to have another issue, because then they're going to look bulky in there and there's not going to be any space for the fish to swim. Let's just say that the right amount of hardscape, the proportion of the hardscape relative to the size of the aquarium, should be well thought over. The good material choice is already setting the basis of a good layout when you're building it. Third point, pick a composition style. There are a couple of basic hardscape structures that we always use in the aquarium. You can deviate from them, but I think that you should actually start to at least have an idea in your mind on which structure you're choosing. The first one is the triangle composition. The second one is the V-shape. The third composition style is the island composition. With that said, we have a fourth composition when you have crowded things and all kinds of visual elements in the aquarium which are taking up all the space in the aquarium. This is already the territory of contest aquariums and more sophisticated layouts. I wouldn't disencourage you, but this is something that is for the most advanced aquascapers. Using soil to shape the layout. The soil is something that you can create valleys with, hills with. It can be flat towards the back of the aquarium, which will increase the perspective and open up the space towards you, or it can be sloping towards the back pane of the aquarium. But the idea behind this is to tilt this whole thing towards you. So when the viewer is looking at the aquarium, they're not only seeing like a flat thing planted, but they see something like tilted towards us, which means that you will be able to see the full scale of the plants and all the elements that you want to create with. Perspective and depth are not defined by the slope, by the way that you're bringing the soil back. Perspective is defined by the size of the things that you will use, so we will talk about that later. The next point is one of the more important elements, why composition matters and how should you use your skills in composing an aquarium. I've met many beginners who told me that, oh, I don't have an eye towards composition and I don't know how you guys do it. And I always tell them, if you study this, like you would study math, you would be able to get better and better at this. With that said, we do have a couple of picture composition rules that I want to talk about. Namely, I'm gonna just talk about two now. The first one is the golden ratio rule or the rule of thirds. Let's just say that the rule of thirds is like something that is very close to the golden ratio rule. The idea is not to have everything in the center. So do you see this this whole table here? Okay, so you see this whole table here, right? This is the middle of the table. This is about 1/3 of the table. This is probably the golden ratio point, so it's not far away. So I'm dividing the table in two different sizes. And if you put something here at this point right here is looking, when you look at this, it looks natural. For some reason, we people are working like this, nature works like this. When you have this in the middle, you have a symmetric thing, and this leads us to point number 2, which is symmetry. You can use that, but you have to know that symmetry always looks a little bit dull in aquascaping. The next one is how many elements you want to use. Having an odd number of elements in an aquarium are helping with the balance of the layout. Have 3, 5, 7, etc. elements in the aquarium. And I'm saying elements by purpose. Those can be rocks or those can be patches of red plants, for example. But the idea is not to have even number of things. You should have one main focal point in the aquarium. Every line, every element should lead your eye towards that focal point. So when you start building your aquarium, always choose one exact point, which ideally should be in golden ratio. That focal point will attract the eye. The next is mismatching elements. And we also touched on this before, but you should not have elements that are out of proportion in certain places. For example, if you put a big rock to the back and all the other rocks in the back are small, or if you have a small rock in the front but all the big ones are around it, it will look out of place. And this is something that if you don't know how to do, maybe sit down with family members, friends and other aquascapers, send pictures of what you did to others, asking for their opinion. You'll get many. About creating depth and perspective. That is a very difficult thing to do. That actually requires a little bit more studying and the knowledge of the perspective. So designers like Luca Galarraga are in clear favor in this topic. And we have the masterclass of Jarsim about perspective in that topic. What you should know is that if you're using bigger pieces in the front and smaller pieces in the back, by pieces I mean bigger plants in the front, smaller plants in the back, bigger rocks in the front, smaller rocks in the back, that would already give you perspective. A good focal point, and all the lines in the aquarium should point to that focal point, leading your eye from one golden ratio point at the bottom to another. And the moment that you start building inwards or outwards focal points like this, you will actually make the layout have more perspective. And if you want to see how the ultimate focal points in contest aquariums are actually achieved, take a look at this image. So people are actually making crazy lines, making perspective. You can create pathways leading to the focal point. So if you're having like path built of sand in the layout, those are also helpful. The next one is perspective when we're talking about layers in the aquarium. So the aquarium has a foreground, a midground, and a background. That is the minimum you should have in your aquarium if you want to achieve a proper look. Practically, the more layers you have towards from the front towards the back of your aquarium, the better the scape will look like. So how can that be achieved? Let me give you a very simple example. Foreground. We are using smaller plants, we are using lower growing plants. Midground, we are using mid plants. Actually, if you visit the greenaqua.com website, you can see that you can categorize the plants based on the place in the layout. So midground, and then you can have background plants which are taller, okay? This is contrary to what I said, use big ones in the front and small ones in the back, so that's okay also. But if in order to have transition in between these two, you can use terraces, you can use hardscape elements, so you can play around a little. This is improvisation, just check it out, see how it looks. But layers are very important. Don't ever forget that you need some space between the hardscape elements and the glass panes. And that is something, for example, that we use the Eheim Rapid Cleaner to clean the glass. And if you can fit that in between the hardscape element and the glass pane, then you're actually have enough space for cleaning the aquarium. So maintenance is something that you should always consider when you're talking about layout composition. There are two other things that we should consider when we're generally talking about layout composition. The first one is shadows. The shadows are very important. Do not place everything so that the direct light from the top of the aquarium is actually lighting everything. So if you tilt something forward, you already have a shadow below it. Another thing that you should have is colors. So when you're choosing the plants, and I'm going to talk about that later, you should have colors in the aquarium which are alternating, darker greens, lighter greens. And you should use most of the space around you. Do not have empty spaces. I'm not saying that for a triangle composition you cannot have two sides of the aquarium actually empty. You can, but it needs to be proportional. Let's talk a little bit about mixing hardscape materials. You've seen me use one type of wood in an aquarium, but you've seen me use two types of wood in an aquarium, and I told you, even though their color is different, with time they will all get the same brownish tint and they can compensate each other well. With that said, using two types of rocks in an aquarium is probably not something that I would do, because they have a different color and different texture, and in nature you rarely see two types of rocks in the same valley in the same place. With that said, you have to have a basic concept on which one is the main hardscape element in your layout. You cannot have similarly weighted rocks and wood in the same layout. Wood usually dominates, it's bigger, and then you have smaller rocks at the bottom of the wood. Or rocks dominate and you have smaller wood pieces like roots crawling down those rocks. And the secondary material should actually support the first one. So if you're having a wood piece in the golden ratio point like that, and if you're having a rock right here, that should support somehow, point toward that, for example, like that. And then you have a third rock, a smaller one, pointing backwards here. But this wood piece in itself, I know it's an odd number, it's not enough, so you have to have another branch pointing this way, but then 2 is an even number, so let's have a third one like this. So it's like you can start telling the story of your initial idea with those hardscape elements. Combining wood and stone can enrich your layout. You can actually use the Riverest fast fusion compound and the Riverest superglue to actually weigh these wood pieces down, because they would float up in the first couple of weeks and it would make the maintenance actually a lot more difficult in the long run. So what we do is that we put down the wood piece, we support it with a rock, we glue those together with the Riverest combination, and then we just fill it up with water after planting. If you want the layout to look natural, only one hardscape material should actually dominate the picture. And the second layout material should support. It should not compete with the main layout material. Okay, so you've done the hardscape part, the most creative part, arguably, and then you're facing with a big dilemma. What kind of plants should I use? And you're immediately overwhelmed with the huge number and type of plants that you have. I think that you should use plants like artists use paint. Use the different colors, use the different leaf structures, use the different size. As I said in the beginning, if you have smaller plants in the back, those would immediately make the aquarium look bigger. Also play around with your plants. If you're using 2 patches of red plants on the left side, use 1 patch of red plant on the right side. And you have symmetry, but it's not real symmetry, it's just, supportive thing. And also when you're choosing plants, you have to take into consideration how big they will grow, because if you're buying a lap plant, that is probably this small, but that plant can be 1 meter high if you don't trim it. Many beginners are actually not thinking about the leaf structure, for example. They're using plants that have a lot of character, I should say, a very defined leaf structure, and they just like the plant in itself, but they never put that into context. So again, always go back to the story that you want to tell. Don't forget that we're building these aquariums to be a natural habitat for fish. We're not overpopulating the aquariums. We can choose different types of fish, but mostly in the minimalistic layouts, we're choosing 1 or 2 types of schooling or shoaling fish that are actually swimming in the layout together. Color of the fish is also very important. How they behave. Are they fit? Would this aquarium be okay with that fish size? We've seen countless times with beginners that they cannot choose between fish, so what they're going to do is have 5 cherry barbs, 3 guppies, 4 gummies in the aquarium, and the whole thing will look chaotic because of that. And this brings me back to the main idea of this video. Have a plan. Think about it. Don't jump on it. Don't fall in love with fish. Don't fall in love with plants. You can, but then you should build the layout around that. So you cannot have everything in one aquarium. I'm just here to save you some time, some money, and to help you build a better aquarium. But first of all, believe in yourself. I hope that you will feel the love for nature aquariums and aquascaping just as much as I do. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.